Neurotypical privilege is not your fault. It's an artifact of systems that favor some people over others, systems that have evolved naturally to meet the needs of the majority, but have failed to provide adequate accommodations for those outside of it. Privilege is not in itself a terrible thing. Having any form of privilege does not make you good or bad. Just about everyone has some form of privilege. Likewise, not all people, autistic or not, have had the same experiences. Other forms of privilege can act as a cushion against many of the harsher realities endured by those who belong to multiply disenfranchised groups. The statement that privilege exists is not an accusation or attempt to blame, but is an invitation to see your experiences and those of others in a new light. It's not an admonition to change the world, but a tool with which to begin considering whether some changes would be worth making. Here's the checklist of neurotypical privilege, starting with the safety section. 1. I've never been told because of my neurology that I'm incapable of feeling pain. 2. If I have a medical problem, I do not worry that my doctor will dismiss it as part of my neurotypicality. 3. When attempting to purchase health insurance, I know that I will not be rejected because I am NT. 4. If I'm harassed or abused, people will not assume that it was my fault or that I am partially to blame if only I would try harder to behave like someone else. 5. I can assume that police officers will not become alarmed at my natural body language and movements and find it necessary to subdue me in advance of any wrongdoing. 6. I do not have to carry a special card or bracelet with me to explain my natural body movements or the sounds that I naturally make. 7. I am not considered more dangerous and more likely to commit a crime because of my neurology. 8. People of my neurology are not generally considered burdensome to our families or taxpayers. 9. No one will murder me because of my neurology. 10. If I am murdered, my murderer will not be let off because my murder was deemed an act of mercy or given a light sentence because of the stress caused by interacting with me. 11. I do not have to fear that important decisions about my life will be made by others who are considered inherently more qualified based on their neurology. 12. I am not expected to accept seclusion, restraints, or drugs as conditions of my education. Now, the inclusion section. Number 13. For a child of my neurotype, everyday teaching of the skills that they will need to live in this society is called education or parenting, not therapy, treatment, or intervention. 14. If someone of my neurology can do something well, I will not be punished for being unable to do the same thing well or at all. 15. People do not constantly tell me that I need to work on things which I'm very bad at the expense of things which I'm good at, enjoy doing. 16. People have power for my education will probably not decide that instead of receiving the academic education most of my peers receive, it would be best for me if I spent my time in school learning non-academic skills. 17. I can reveal my neurology to my boss and coworkers without fear of losing my job. 18. I can ask for technical or social support on the job without being seen as a troublemaker or charity case. 19. People do not automatically assume that the best place for me to live in is an institution. 20. The majority of people who make the laws of my nation share my neurology. 21. The services that I need to survive not only already exist, but even if I use those services on a 24-hour basis, I will still be considered independent. 22. When I need help performing a particular task, I can ask for help without having to produce documentation to prove I actually need help with it. The help will most often be provided in a manner I can understand and will not be considered an inconvenience or an act of pity. 23. No one sees my neurology as being in need of elimination or cure. 24. If I am visibly upset, people will generally assume something must have upset me and will generally try to help me. 25. People do not suggest that groups that are made for the benefit of my neurological type be led and ruled by people of a different neurological type because mine is seen as incapable. 26. I've never had to take a single test that determines for my entire life whether I get to communicate or not. Relationships. 27. My family, friends, and significant others are not told I'm capable of relating to other human beings. 28. If I'm an adult, I can be a sexual being without the assumption that any partner attracted to me must be a predator or pedophile. 29. I'm never told that I should not have children lest I pass on the genes that cause them to share my neurological type. 30. No one speculates about whether I'm competent to raise children based solely on my neurology. 31. People do not assume that living in the same household as me is inherently tragic or devastating, or that my family and friends and partner will need a support group to deal with living with me. 32. I will not be asked to leave a public place or to change where I live because people are uncomfortable with my existence or behaviors. 33. If I am unhappy, people do not automatically assume my unhappiness is the result of me being who I am. 34. My opinions on social mores and societal issues are not dismissed based on my neurology or on the assumption that I'm incapable of understanding how these things work. Likewise, my identity and gender are not discounted because of my neurology. Respect. 35. I expect people to presume intellect and competence. 36. If I fail, most will encourage me by telling me that I will ultimately succeed. 37. If I fail to understand autistic people, this is attributed to a deficit inherent in them rather than in me. 38. If I have a particular talent or ability, I can demonstrate that talent without being called an idiot, savant, or my talent being called a splinter skill or some other demeaning word. 39. The definitions of rude and irritating conduct were developed by and for people with my neurology. 40. I'm not praised for acting less neurotypical or punished for acting more neurotypical. I am not expected to alter or suppress my natural ways of moving, interacting, or expressing emotion in most circumstances. 42. If I fail to alter or suppress my natural ways of moving, interacting, or expressing emotion, I do not fear public ridicule or exclusion because of this. 43. When prospective parents and others speak of wanting a healthy child, I know that means someone like me. 44. People don't accuse me of grandiosity or derisively dismiss if I suggest that some admirable historical figure might have been neurotypical. 45. It's considered good for people who are not like me to try to act more like me. 46. My natural movements and traits are not used by my peers to ridicule others of their neurological type, either jokingly or maliciously. 47. I'm never told that the fact that I have a certain cognitive skill means that I'm lying when I say I lack another cognitive skill, nor am I dismissed as incapable of things I truly can do because I lack certain cognitive skills. 48. I can discuss my interests at length without this being viewed as a symptom. 49. When I communicate, people do not gather in crowds around me and gawk. And lastly, my behaviors, abilities, and skills at age 2 and 3 are considered indicative of an immature phase of life that will pass naturally, not as representative of my prognosis for the rest of my life.